If you put together 40,000 students paying a fee of 30,000 rands, that's assuming that's the average tuition of all the students put together, then the institution would make more than 1 billion rand in a single year. And add together the money from donors and government benefits, then I can guarantee you for certain that these famous universities generate massive amounts of money. I'm not being ignorant about operating costs and all other expenses that a business faces, but my point in this matter is that revenue from student fees alone is over 9 figures for the biggest educational institutions. Massive numbers, right? I know some of you might find this hard to believe, but in our world full of greed and money-hungry plutocrats, there are nations that either pay for your high school education or they pay for your tertiary education. In recent years, we had massive waves of fellow young people yelling free education even here in South Africa. And to be fair, honestly, free education is what our poverty-stricken society needs, but it's kind of unrealistic in a country where everyone is seeking profit and gain. Those with thousands want millions, those with millions want billions, and then those with billions want everyone else billions. It's quite a shit show, honestly. If we speak honestly, the National Student Financial Aid Scheme was definitely a wise decision. Whoever created this system might have wanted gains, but their heart was definitely in the right place. Let's observe this situation for a second. NSFAS is not just a good thing for society, but for our country as a whole. It's probably one of the most important entities in our country. Majority of students that finish matric don't come from families that can afford to pay 30,000 rand up to 60,000 rand for school fees. It's quite a hefty sum for most South African families, but through NSFAS, the government removes the burden of most families in the country, while also giving hope to dozens of families. Agree with me or not, NSFAS has helped a lot of families escape poverty through giving funds to a future breadwinner. Do you understand the significance of NSFAS now? Our current society and with the current state of the global economy, the nation would be crippled long term if funds dropped or if NSFAS was hijacked like what happened to Eskom, Transnet and Fly SAA. Why am I saying the future of our country would be hit hard? Am I over-exaggerating? Is it an exaggeration to say destroying a system that funds millions of students and future professionals in our society would actually destroy the nation even more? Put two and two together. This is one of the entities that should not collapse. Much like our health system cannot afford to crash nor degrade, but guess what? Welcome to South Africa. A beautiful country, huge potential, but guess who wasted the most? The ones we place in power. I didn't see any interest in doing a video about NSFAS, but I saw quite a number of people asking me to look into this matter, and of course I decided to do a quick search on the 21st of November, and lo and behold, the CEO of NSFAS got himself in some hot water. The story is quite interesting from what I actually read, so this is how it actually goes. It said the NSFAS CEO handpicked companies to disperse funds to students. Well, that's what reports from News24 and other outlets actually say. They also say a report found NSFAS CEO Andile participated in choosing companies to disperse funds to students. The report found there was a conflict in interest in appointing some of the companies to disperse 47 billion rands to NSFAS beneficiaries. You heard that right, 47 billion rands. How big is that? We are talking Patrice Mutsipe's net worth big. That's how much money we are talking about right now. This is actually a fucking big deal, bro. Just listen to me. We are talking about nearly 50 billion rands. That's not small money. I know this is now normal in our country, but when are we as Africans going to say no to all forms of dodgy activity regarding state funds? They just don't stop pulling strings, giving benefits and contracts to their friends like they did with Transnet, and when they feel brazen enough, they also get to the point of just directly looting the money like they did with Eskom. So this so-called report actually says the CEO of the National Student Financial Aid Scheme or NSFAS, Andile, actively participated in choosing companies to disperse allowances to beneficiaries of 47 billion rands. So they say this man was actually hands-on. He had to make sure everything went right. Most we were talking about student funds, right? So he wanted to make sure nothing went wrong. Yeah, right. Anyway, it goes on to say Andile has been suspended and has until Monday to give the NSFAS board reasons why his contract should not be terminated for facilitating the maladministration, which led to more than 80,000 students not receiving their allowances on time. Like the way this matter has been reported is actually so light and so smooth. There's no real buzz regarding this so-called alleged maladministration of billions of rands that are meant to smoothly go to children of tax-paying citizens. 80,000 students is no small number. The amount of money required to cover just one student is huge. So we're talking about a lot of money right here. But since they say it's just a small maladministration of funds, then it's no big deal, right? Using his George to confuse us and make it seem like it's a small mistake that just happened. That's what they do here in South Africa. They're really good at covering up matters. NSFAS is just going belly up at this point. Not just that, but even our educational system has been on a downward spiral, with our ministers chasing numbers to impress each other and to impress citizens instead of chasing for quality from matriculants. Constantly dropping the average required to pass matric has been quite problematic. The long-term standard for passing matric in our country was around 50%, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, it was around 50%. You had to hit that mark to actually graduate from high school. But in comes CAPS and the ANC ministers of education who saw the average high school matric pass rate dropping year after year and decided maybe it's best to just take the average required percentage down from 50% to about 45%. Then what happened next? They still took it down to about 40%. Surely that would work, right? Reaching 50% is unfair to these children, so let's tell them to hit 40%. Oh well. Then they decided, you know what? These kids are still failing and crushing the average pass rates and ruining our bonuses. So let's drop the pass rate down from 40% so many of them can pass, right? Did that work? Dropping the pass rate definitely led to more students passing matric and graduating, but guess what happened? There was a massive backlash. Tell me this. If you were to hit an average of 50% instead of 40% or 35%, I don't even know what the average is at this point, honestly. Were you gonna work as hard as you would work when you have to hit 50%? No, the answer is as simple as that. You're not gonna work as hard as that. Students will be more relaxed, so after passing matric, majority of students don't even qualify to enter university. Because on the contrary, these universities don't even drop their standards. Instead, they keep it very hard to gain admission. And some of them even raise their standards. So it's just a mess because dropping the average to pass matric really affects a lot of students from even getting into universities. Come to university, then you now need to get 50% to even pass in your courses, and it becomes another new shock because you might not be adapted to the pressure at all. So I'm sure we can all agree that our broader educational system now lacks quality. So let's go back to topic honestly and talk a little more about this NSFAS shit show. NSFAS board chairman Ernest Khoza is said to have given preliminary findings of a probe conducted by a law firm called Workmen's Attorneys and Advocate Tembega into the irregular awarding of 4 contracts for those direct payments of allowances to students. Khoza said it was found that the 4 firms were irregularly appointed and Andile played an active role in this flawed system or in this flawed process. Can you see the societal problem we face? Friends in politics giving each other contracts and access to government funds and government tenders. But anyway, the report also reveals that there seems to have been a conflict of interest in the appointment of these 4 fintech service providers.